17 of the fantasy football season and championship week for most fantasy owners. Here's tight end starts sit every matchup this week. First matchup, Kansas City Chiefs at the Pittsburgh Steelers Christmas Day ball game. So Kansas City 14-1 on the season. Patrick Mahomes, he didn't miss last week's game. And Travis Kelce, I know the numbers haven't been great this season, especially the last 2 weeks he's had under double-digit fantasy points in PPR leagues. But this week in a big matchup at Pittsburgh, I think he goes out there, they turn things around. Mahomes a little bit healthier. He's a start. Noah Gray, a flex option. He's definitely been a decent option for this Chief team over the last month of the season, making plays, finding the end zone. He's Noah Gray, and another big target in this offense for Kansas City. So this week in a matchup at Pittsburgh, where I know their defense has been pretty good, but we've seen tight ends have good games versus them. And last week, Andrews and Isaiah Likely both found the end zone. He's a flex option. Patrick will to start. Number 2 option in this offense, but the last couple of weeks he's been the number 1 option in this offense with George Pickens out. So I believe Pickens could return in this ball game. But either way, Pat Freiermuth, he's been playing great football, especially since Wilson's coming into the starting lineup. And he's a start. Baltimore Ravens at the Texans, Mark Andrews a start. He's been a touchdown machine. I know the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season he got off to a slow start is Mark Andrews, but he's definitely turned the season around. And he's been a big playmaker once again for Lamar. And this Raven team season must start. Dalton Schultz, a flex option. Last week, one of his bigger games in a while for Dalton Schultz. Tank Dell, we know he's out for the season with the knee injury. And now someone else is going to have to step up and take some of those targets. And I believe that's going to be Dalton Schultz. So this week, in a matchup where they know they got to put points on the board, he's a flex option. Seattle Seahawks at the Chicago Bears. Noah Fant, AJ Bonner are sits. They're the 4th or 5th options on this offense behind Jackson Smith-Njigba. Behind, obviously, DK Metcalf, and even behind Tyler Lockett to an extent in this offense. And whoever the back is going to be in Kenneth Walker or Charbonnet, so not enough volume, not enough targets, and even in a good matchup at the Chicago Bears, this hits Cole Kmet sit. I know he found the end zone last week, but his numbers have been inconsistent, and he's arguably the 4th or 5th option as well in this offense behind DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, DeAndre Swift. So Cole Kmet, he'll have a couple pop games here and there like we've seen this season, but this week in a championship matchup, he's tough to trust. He's a sit. Los Angeles Chargers at the Patriots. Well, this week, Stone Smart, their sit, whoever plays in this game. If this week's back in the lineup or if Smart's going to get the call, I just can't trust any of these tight ends. And this offense definitely taken a step back the last few weeks for this Charger team. I know last week on Thursday night they went out there and put a good game, but before that, the offense wasn't clicking. J.K. Dobbins definitely been a big loss out of the backfield for them. And this week here, even in a good matchup with the Patriots, both tight ends are sits. Hunter Henry a start. He's arguably the number 1 option in the passing game for this Patriot team. And it seems like weekly, he's at least scoring 9 or more fantasy points in PPR weeks. So last week he found the end zone was Hunter Henry. This is a matchup versus former team. And I believe he's going to go out there once again and have a good ball game. And he's a start in this one. Denver Broncos at the Cincinnati Bengals. Adam Trotman, a sit. I know he found the end zone last week, but he's only had a couple good games out of the whole season. At this part of the year, in a championship game or a third-place game, you're not going to put Trotman in the starting lineup, so he's a sit. Even in a good matchup at Cincinnati, Mike Gesicki a sit. If he was on another team where you didn't have 2 great wide receivers like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, I think he would be more of a fantasy option is Mike Gesicki. But this week, not the greatest of matchups as well versus Denver Broncos, one of the better defenses in all pro football. And the targets haven't been there really, especially with Chase and Higgins getting most of them, and Chase Brown out of the backfield. Benadre Asavis making plays as well. He's a sit. Cardinals at the Rams, Trey McBride, he's a start. I know last week was a down game for Trey McBride, didn't get a lot of targets. And this offense still put 30 points on the board, but pretty much it was the running game and the defense at times putting them in good spots. So Trey McBride, you rarely see 2 bad games in a row. And this week at the Los Angeles Chargers, a team he's obviously familiar with, playing in the same division in the NFC West. He's a start. Tyler Higbee a sit. It was good to see him come back last week off the torn ACL where he missed the whole season, and he had an 11-yard touchdown. But that was his only catch on the day and only had 2 targets on the day. So when you got guys like Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, and Kyron Williams, you're going to be 4th or 5th fiddle in this offense. So Higbee, even in a decent matchup to sit. Carolina Panthers at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Tommy Tremble is it. I know this offense has definitely played better football over the last month of the season for this Carolina Panther team, but tight end position between Tremble and Jatavian Sanders hasn't been consistent. all season long. This week, I know it's a decent matchup at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where their defense really can't stop anyone. But this week, they're both sits. K-Dot, and if he returns in this game, he's a sit. His targets were going down a lot with Joe McMillan obviously emerging as number 2 option in this offense. And he's been banged up, so Fotten's back. He's still a sit. Payne Durham, he filled in Frotten in last week's game at the Cowboys, and he had a mediocre game, 5 catches, 29 yards. But he's not going to be much of an option as well, even in a good matchup. So easy sits this week. New York Jets at the Buffalo Bills. Tyler Conklin, he had one of his better games of the year last week in the loss versus the Rams. But this Jet offense, obviously, it revolves around Devontae Adams, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson as the top 3 options, with everyone else secondary type of players. Well, they'll have a couple good games here and there throughout the season. But this week in a matchup in Buffalo, I know the Jets could be chasing points, but like I said, Conklin really hasn't been consistent, and he's a sit this week. Dalton Kincaid to start. I know last week we didn't see much out of this Bill offense besides James Cook going out there and having a monster game. But 2 weeks in a row, you rarely see this offense have down weeks, especially Josh Allen. So this week, with Kincaid being the number 2 target, in my opinion, in this offense, behind Khalil Shakir, I think he bounces back, and this passing game as a whole bounces back, and he's the start. The Indianapolis Colts at the New York Giants. Both teams tight end position pretty much non-existent for fantasy football. Kyle Granton is here. Pretty much this offense is obviously Jonathan Taylor, Josh Downs, and Anthony Richardson running the football. And Granton, he's had a couple games here and there, but no one you're going to trust. He's a sit. Daniel Bellinger sit as well. Bellinger, we've seen some decent games out of him on and off throughout his NFL career over the last few seasons. But this Giant offense has been a mess. The only options are Tyrone Tracy, Malik Neighbors that have much fantasy value at all. And he's a sit in this one, even in a decent matchup. Packers at the Vikings, Tucker Kraft to start. I know Kraft, his numbers have been up and down this season, but this offense as a whole in the passing game has been inconsistent. Guys like Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs. I think Tucker Kraft, he got a decent ball game in this one in Minnesota. I know they're one of the better defenses in the league, but they're still vulnerable to giving up a decent amount of pass yards per game to the tight end position. And Tucker Kraft, one of the better yard after catch tight ends in the league. He's a start. TJ Hawkinson a start. I know it's been a mixed bag of results since he returned coming off the ACL injury. And I also know he is the third option in the passing game now is Hawkinson. Behind, obviously, Justin Jefferson. Behind, obviously, Jordan Addison, who's had a great second half of the season. But Hawkinson's a tight end. That's a mismatch for most linebackers, most safeties. And this week in a matchup where they're home indoors, which is always a plus, I think Hawkinson could go out there and be a top 10 option at the position. He's at the Saints. Brock Bowers, obviously a start each and every week. Bowers the best tight end in fantasy football this season easily. What a year it's been in his rookie year. Imagine he played with a better quarterback than Aiden O'Connell. Was Brock Bowers. His numbers would be even more better, I believe. So with Gardner Minshew and O'Connell this season, he's gone out there and he put up big numbers as Brock Bowers. So this week, obviously a must-start indoor game at New Orleans Saints. Best tight end in the league. And a must-start. Juwan Johnson forced him on road. There sits in this one. I know this team's depleted. All their top playmakers hurt. Alvin Kamara, Taysom Hill, Derek Carr, Rashid Shaheed, Chris Olave, all out are these players. And it's down to Johnson and Monroe, especially at the tight end position. But we haven't seen enough consistency week in and week out. And Spencer Rattler, he's not the type of quarterback I have confidence in feeding these 2 tight ends the football at a decent rate. Tennessee Titans at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Chigga Kwango, the last 2 weeks, he's actually got double-digit fantasy points in PPR league. So this week, he's a flex option. It's a good matchup versus division rival, the Jaguars. And this is just 2 bad teams going at it where you pretty much could think anything goes in these games. And there'll be a lot of passing of the football where both teams have had to throw a lot this season, especially in garbage time, even though I believe this is going to be a tight game. But Okwango, like I said, the last couple weeks, he's getting things going. And it's been with Mason Rudolph in there at the starting quarterback position. Brenton Strange, last week he had a down game. He only had 4 fantasy points in PPR leagues. He had a bad fumble as well where he was benched for a bit with Strange. But going back a couple weeks ago versus the New York Jets, he had a whopping 12 targets in that game, 11 catches for 73 yards. So Strange, I still believe, is a flex option. Not much left in this offense behind Brian Thomas. Injured. Evan Ingram out for the season. Christian Kirk, Gabe Davis out for the season. And now Brenton Strange and Brian Thomas Jr., the top 2 options, I believe, in the passing game. So this week, I think he's a flex option. Miami Dolphins at the Browns. Jonnu Smith to start each and every week. And the last month of the season, he's been a top 3 tight end in every category is Jonnu Smith. So right now, the number 2 option, in my opinion, for this Miami Dolphin passing game. He's definitely past Jalen Waddle, and the number 2 option is Jonnu Smith. Him and Tua hitting on those quick hit, slant routes, and quick out routes. And this week in a decent matchup at the Browns, I think he goes out there, has a good game once again. David Njoku will start. He had a nice game last week with DeMarcus Thompson-Robinson at the quarterback position, and Njoku, one of the better athletes at the tight end position, could line up anywhere in a formation. But the only thing, he might not play in this game where he was banged up with a knee injury, so we got to wait and see his status. But obviously, if he plays, he's a start. If not, Jordan Akins is going to get the start for this Cleveland Brown team. And this offense has been a mess, especially with Deshaun Watson early in the season and with Thompson Robinson last week. So if Robinson's in there, or even if Winston, let's say, comes back in the starting lineup, Akins still wouldn't be a tight end to have confidence in. He's a sit. Dallas Cowboys at the Eagles. Jake Ferguson is start. Last week led the Cowboys in targets. And Cooper Rush, he's been playing good football, no doubt about it, for this Dallas Cowboy team, where they're moving the football, they're getting it down the field. They've actually won a decent amount of games now over the last 5 weeks as this Dallas Cowboy team. So Ferguson, the number 2 option in the passing game behind CeeDee Lamb. And this week in a matchup where they might be chasing points at Philadelphia, he's a start. Grant Katera, he's a sit, the 4th or 5th option in this offense behind Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith. And if he's not finding the end zone, he really hasn't had any impact at all in fantasy football. So he's a sit this week. Atlanta Falcons at the Commanders. Kyle Pitts a sit with Michael Penix in there, quarterback. I don't think it changes much here for this Atlanta Falcon team at the tight end position. The top 2 targets in the offense, obviously, Drake London, Darnell Mooney, and Bijan Robinson, a good receiver out of the backfield. So Kyle Pitts, he's that 4th, 5th option. Even Ray McLeod at times has had better games than Kyle Pitts. So Pitts this season, a lot of people had high hopes with Kirk Cousins in their quarterback. It didn't work out. And now with Michael Penix in their quarterback as well, I don't think it's going to work out. He's a sit. Zach Ertz a start in this game. I know the last couple weeks have been tough. He had a concussion a couple weeks ago with Zach Ertz in that ball game at the New Orleans Saints. And then last week he didn't do much versus the Eagles, but this week in a good matchup versus a defense that's had trouble this season, I think Ertz could go out there and have a bounce-back performance, and I actually give him the start in the final game of the week, Monday night. Detroit Lions at the San Francisco 49ers. Sam Laporta, he's a start. Found the end zone last week on that nice trickery play. The Chicago Bears thought it actually was a stumble and bumble type of thing with the Lions. And then Jared Goff faked it, threw it down the sidelines, and hit Laporta for a touchdown. So the last 2 weeks, big games for Sam Laporta. This week, a good matchup at San Francisco, where their defense hasn't been good this season. He's a start. And George Kittle will start each and every week. Number 1 option in this passing game. He's uncoverable, still is George Kittle. And the only things that held him back throughout his career, obviously, has been for George Kittle is his health. But this week in a good matchup, in a matchup most likely chasing points, he's a must start. So that's tight end start sit every matchup for week 17 of the fantasy football season and the championship week.